This is not right, gentlemen.
These videos are satiric reviews. You don't have to agree, but don't bitch about it. I hate this channel.
Hey there, I'm Social Injustice Warrior V Infuso, and love him or hate him, you can't deny the success Big Show has found in wrestling in terms of longevity and accomplishments. The Big Show has quite the resume in terms of championship wins, winning the WCW tag titles on 3 occasions. In a team with legendary names like Sting, Lex Luger, and Scott Hall, he won the WWF Hardcore Championship on 3 occasions, the WWE United States and Intercontinental Championship once apiece, the WWE Tag Team Championship with Kane, Chris Jericho, and The Miz, as well as the World Tag Team Championship with The Undertaker and also Kane and Chris Jericho. In addition to those title wins, he won the WCW World War III match of 1996, and the WWE Andre the Giant Battle Royal in 2015. And all of that isn't including his 7 world title wins. And while becoming world champion on 7 different occasions is nothing to sneeze at, out of all his world title reigns, you'd be hard-pressed to find even a single tenure that fans would call successful. So join me in taking a look back at all of the Big Show's world title victories. Back in WCW, the Big Show, then known as the Giant, made his debut as the alleged son of Andre the Giant. He came into the company looking to avenge his father's WrestleMania loss to Hulk Hogan. And in his debut match, his first ever official in-ring bout, he'd beat Hulk Hogan and win the WCW World Heavyweight Championship. In his debut match, first match, world champion. Of course, this being a Hogan-crazed WCW, there was a bunch of gimmicks and shenanigans at hand, including a monster truck sumo match. No, I didn't just make that up, but I kind of wish I did. A monster truck sumo match, followed by the Giant's apparent death after he'd fallen off the side of the building.
No! Oh my God!
Wow. Thanks, Ray Ray.
Everybody gets one. Tell him, Hogan.
Apparently, everybody gets one.
Bingo.
Not to mention the match itself ended in a disqualification after Jimmy Hart interfered in the match. Now normally a title, let alone a world title, is not won on a disqualification. The one who is disqualified will lose the match, but the champion will still retain the championship as it's not deemed to be a fair victory. However, the Giant had a clause in his contract that stated if he'd won a title on a disqualification, he'd still be proclaimed champion. Of course he did. I believe that is the Deus Ex Machina contract clause is what that's called. Don't quote me. Regardless, the Giant was still stripped of his title the next week on Nitro. The Giant would then win his second WCW championship by defeating the legendary Nature Boy Ric Flair. Giant would go on to hold that title for 110 days, but didn't really do all that much in the spotlight. He was just kind of the big guy with the belt. Mind you, he was still relatively new to wrestling as a whole, and he was just kind of left to his own devices here. I mean, the guy was a 2-time champion in his rookie year. That doesn't happen, or at least it's not supposed to. It shouldn't. In a just world, it does not happen. He would eventually, of course, lose that title once again to Hulk Hogan, albeit a heel Hollywood Hogan. The Giant would eventually head to the competition, WCW's rival, the then WWF, where he'd be renamed The Big Show. He was immediately treated like a, well, no pun intended, big deal upon his arrival. At Survivor Series 1999, The Big Show would be brought in as a last-minute replacement for Stone Cold, who was, and I shit you not here, who was run over by a car, though not a sumo monster truck, so Big Show was found innocent. He'd replace Stone Cold Steve Austin in the main event of that pay-per-view, taking on the likes of Triple H and The Rock, and beating them in a triple threat match, winning his first ever WWF Championship with tears in his eyes. And while this was a feel-good moment, at a point in Big Show's career where you finally felt like he somewhat deserved it, what followed completely degrades the first half of this sentence. The Big Show might have been a champion, but he wasn't really treated as such, immediately finding himself in a feud with the Big Boss Man of all people. And no offense to Ray Traylor, but I don't really recall him having too many WWF Championship opportunities before or after this. Big Show was the company's top champion, yet he found himself in the mid-card, in a feud that was entertaining, but probably for the wrong reasons. And on the first Raw of 2000, the Big Show would drop the title back to previous champion Triple H. Fast forward to 2002, and the Big Show was not the man he once was. A lot of people felt like his time as a main eventer had come and gone, as he'd find himself more often than not in the mid-card, sometimes impersonating people. That's the greatest gimmick in the world. But that all changed when he switched brands and became an official SmackDown star. He'd promised he'd dominate the roster again as he once had. And he did somewhat deliver, finding himself caught up in a feud with then WWE Champion Brock Lesnar. But at that year's Survivor Series, Paul Heyman, Brock Lesnar's manager and mentor, turned his back on the next big thing and aligned himself with the Big Show, whom he'd help win the match. There wasn't really a clear reason why Heyman would make such a decision, as Brock Lesnar as your client is a sure thing, whereas trying to manage the Big Show was, well, let's say questionable at best. But with the way this was all put together, did seem somewhat promising. This was during the rare era where SmackDown was considerably better than Raw, and anything Paul Heyman touched turned to gold. I guess it's too bad that Paul didn't get his hands on Big Show's world title reign, because it wasn't in the slightest bit memorable, as only a month later the Big Show would drop the title to Kurt Angle, with his time as champion serving only to transition it from Brock to Kurt, without the two meeting in a match themselves.
That comes later. What the hell's supposed to do it, Cole? Oh my God!
Later in 2006, Paul Heyman would once again lead the Big Show to a World Championship victory, aiding him in defeating WWE ECW champion Rob Van Dam. And a crowd watching who was decidedly much more ECW than it was WWE nearly rioted, throwing their food and drinks into the ring as if they just saw Hogan leg drop Macho Man. During his reign as champion, he went through the likes of Kane, Ric Flair, Sabu, The Undertaker, and even Batista on one occasion, all while holding the title. He also competed against King Booker and John Cena in a triple threat match between all the company's world champions. But what's really strange is that this reign might be best remembered for the Big Show serving as Vincent Shane's insurance policy in a feud against the reunited DX. On Raw. That happened on Raw. And it also had nothing to do with the Big Show's ECW championship. Not to mention that the title looked like a toy in his monstrous hands. Show would later lose the title in one of the worst Elimination Chamber matches of all time. Again, not really the reign you'd expect for a 7-time world champion. In 2011, the Big Show would find himself in an intense back-and-forth feud with Mark Henry. And he'd finally managed to pick up the win and another championship reign by defeating the world's strongest man in a chairs match at that year's TLC. And he'd immediately lose the title following the aftermath, when Mark Henry would retaliate, beat him down, and leave him vulnerable for a Money in the Bank cash-in by Daniel Bryan.
Will you cut that out?
The next year's Show would once again find himself in the World Championship running, feuding with the then champion Sheamus, who Big Show would continue to feud with after his title victory. This title reign, much like his last one, was especially eyebrow-raising because Big Show didn't really do anything different at the time. He was still doing the same old tired act he'd been sleepwalking through for the last several years. Except now, he was back in the main event. And I think he was kind of wearing camo at the time. I could be wrong. It just seemed so strange. Big Show was already a veteran at the time, and didn't really elevate his competition in any way, shape, or form. So it seemed odd to see him as the champion when he didn't really bring a whole lot to the main event scene. Shortly following his feud with Sheamus, he'd lose the title to a newly face Alberto Del Rio. And that was the Big Show's 7 world title reigns. Big Show's 7 uneventful title reigns. I don't know what's worse, the fact that we had to endure that 7 times within our lives, or the fact that you guys decided to click on a video about it and had to endure this video. So, it's just lose-lose all around for all of us, myself included. So, that being said, that's it, guys. I'm retiring.
Crap, that's the end. Well, let me tell you something, brother. You're watching the social injustice warrior, V Infuso's channel, dude. So if you like the words that came out of his mouth hole, and you too want to become a V-tard, don't forget to like and subscribe, and click that little bell icon to get updates and notifications. Ooh, tell him what up, Mach. Ooh, yeah. Follow the man on Twitter, yeah, because we all know it's not stalking if it's on the internet, yeah. Join the madness by joining the Discord, and if you have a moment of time and a free dollar to spare, head over to the SIJW's Patreon, dig it, where you can request videos, get exclusive videos, and early access to content, yeah. Or go down to PayPal, where you can buy the shirts, brother. But most importantly, just remember, if you're not tuning in, then you're missing out.